You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the September 2nd meeting for the Long Beach Budget and Finance Committee. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
This is the September 2nd Budget and Finance meeting. And we have all of our members, our current members present, myself, Colleen Lane, and Mark Swistek, and we have Trista Hudson here today, our advisor. And our first item on the agenda is the monthly financial statements. July projections were updated, but I actually never sent them out to everybody. So I will send that's yours if you want it. I will send the projections once, I think we have a few of them updated, but instead of sending July, or I'll just send both July and August once we have August updated. And the month is about closed. Diane probably has to book her interest for her banks, and possibly her fees, but otherwise, as far as I know, most entries are completed. She just completed her month-end process, and the bank statements, though, are not out today. They'll be out tomorrow. So the bank recs are not done yet, but I don't anticipate any problems. And then you guys have in front of you the cash allocation report. It's clean and it shows our balances. We did have a water with the sinking fund, Bank of New York, that Trista and I spent some time on, and we finally have that where we had we had an asset, yes, the liability on the balance sheet that was still sitting in the water fund, and we had broken out, as the auditors wanted us to, New York and the capital improvement from the water fund. And so we had to just figure out, we actually moved that liability into the Bank of New York fund. So now we're really there and it's clean and it's how it should be. The balances are correct. So a lot of hours on, and it's done in 2 years. So, but it's
Year and 3/4.
year and 3/4. So there's the cash allocation. I will send out the revenues and expenses. I just printed them for Trista for August. And then, so we're, not ready completely for today, but you guys will have those this week for sure. Hopefully later today or tomorrow. And part of that would be the capital plan. I am still entering the expenses. I have it done through about June, so I just need to wrap up entering the CCMG. I did accidentally use some capital out of seeded, I think, not realizing that there was another paving capital line. So I may reclass some of that, but we'll see how the capital ends up. As Mark knows, I'm gonna reclass at least one sort of larger community center item from the bathroom renovation and take it out of community center and just put it towards one of our other capital areas. And that's just to community center. As we discussed during the budget, insurance will come out of there and is gonna be paid from general fund because we're just needing a little more operational money in that fund. That's Mark, I guess. So John Wall's here and you had given us an update on the fire truck. I don't know if we want to discuss that. No, that's fine.
Yeah,
So October is going to be,
or move
The-
that mic up, John.
yeah, you can just,
Delivery date should be October. I'll try to tighten it up for you as soon as we know. A couple of our guys are going out there and making final inspections, the final assembly in the next week. So hopefully they'll give us extra delivery date here. Sure.
All right, we'll get started on the financing.
okay. And then I guess, do we want to discuss any other, Mark, you said you had a truck you wanted to discuss?
Yes,
capital?
on the 5-year capital plan for 2026, there was a F-250 pickup truck for the water department for their day-to-day operations. It'll replace the current 2020 F-250 that'll be moved down into the street department to replace a 2014 truck that will be 12 years old. We have solicited 3 bids for that particular truck, and they range about $3,000 in difference between the 3. So I would like permission from this committee to move the request forward to the town council for consideration at their September 8th meeting. The capital plan has $65,000 for the truck. This includes the additional items for the cargo area of the truck that will be done after the truck is delivered to us. Currently, the anticipated delivery date is as early as 8 weeks and could be as much as 4 to 5 months. So therefore, that's why we want to get it approved this fall so that we could order and receive the truck the first quarter of next year. So I just want to confirm that this committee is good with it in the capital plan for 2026 to expend no more than $65,000.
What are the bids coming in at? You said they're about 3,000 apart, but what are
The
about?
lowest is 52,522, and then the highest is 55,080. And that also takes into account the government bid assistance, which right now looks like it is a little over, give me 1 second here. $6,538. The other concern is with the anticipated tariffs and the ever increasing changes to the automobile market. If we get this truck in and ordered with Ford this fall, we will lock in the government price concession, which is the government bid assistance. And again, that is $6,538. My fear is if we wait and postpone this purchase into the first quarter of next year, order, and then anticipated delivery the second or third quarter next year, that we may lose out on the $6,000 bid assistance. So therefore, that's why we want to move forward this fall to at least get the order into the Ford pipeline, and then we'll receive the truck next year.
And then is this one of the trucks, I mean, one of the things that then additional lightings or signs have to be put on? I mean, it seems like, but there's plenty of leeway, right? Because the capital plan was 65,000.
Some of the items will be paid for out of their operational budget, but then the rear cargo area, I believe they're looking at about a good $8,000 expenditure to put a cargo box, and some other things in the back would be out of capital. And then the 2020 truck that they are currently operating will move down to the street department, and then the street department, through their operational budget, will be purchasing a plow to put on that truck, because currently the 2020 does not have a plow. And the plan is to put a plow on that truck. So if one of our larger trucks goes down, we then have a spare truck to plow with.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. The 65,000 that we had budgeted is still the approximate cost. The 52 to 55,000 is the truck before the upfit, and the 65 is post upfit.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it'll all be out of water department funds.
Yeah, so on the capital plan, we would shift over the expense into 25, which is currently sitting in 2026 from water operating. And I think I don't see an issue with that.
The
Let's
copy I
see
have is updated, so your copy is more updated, Meg.
Yeah.
So
Did we
maybe
get any trade-in on the 2014 or
we're going to sell it at public,
try and sell it at,
public
okay.
auction. I'd anticipate probably $5,000 to $8,000, maybe. It's pretty rusted.
Right, so I believe we have plenty of balance in water operating and we have cap improvement as well, but I don't think, water has a capital project of Oriole and Ridgemore on there for 2026 for 250,000, but that's the only other capital, and I don't even know if that's
Yeah, I
going
talked to,
next year or not, so.
yeah, that project for the 250,000, Greg tells me, won't be going forward next year.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so there's plenty of cash to move it to this year. Do you agree,
well,
Tristan?
we wouldn't have to pay for this until 2026.
So it's just
Oh.
ordering it.
Yeah, we just, if I could get a motion and a second, and then if the committee is
We-
good, we'll move it to the council on September 8th. Get their approval, get it ordered, and then receive it, first quarter, hopefully, of 2026. That's when we'll have to have payment for the truck.
So do we make motions at this board being advisory? I don't know the answer to that. Do you know the answer to that, Trista?
The only ones I recall specifically in the past are on the budget, but
Could you make recommendations? Would that be
Recommendations.
Yeah, we can,
better, a recommendation?
yeah, so,
I would make a recommendation, or you two should make a recommendation.
okay. Yeah, we can make a motion, I guess. I can inquire with Chris further on what's allowed under this type of a board, but okay, so I would motion to make a recommendation for the water department to purchase, to order and then pay for the new truck. So ordering it in this quarter, you said, and then delivery first quarter
First
of
of
next year. Oh, is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, and
Just a
then,
Update on the salt barn. I spoke to the building commissioner. Originally, we were informed that we did not need a state stamp on the building specs for the salt barn, but that's incorrect. We actually have to have a state stamp for the salt barn. So therefore, Commissioner Wall got back with me and informed me that in fact, we have to have a state stamp. So we are working with 2 engineering architectural firms to get quotes from them to do the architectural and engineering blueprints for the salt barn. That amount will probably be at least 10 to 15% of the project. So once I have those quotes, I'll get them in front of the town council for approval. Timeline for the salt barn now looks like the earliest would be construction of spring of 2026, completing it by hopefully summer so that it's ready for the winter season of 2026. There's just no way right now. The state takes at least 6 to 8 weeks to approve the blueprints. And then we still have to secure a couple bids on the salt barn. And I think with everything all in, and don't hold me to this, it's probably going to be more like $150,000 project. So,
Salt barn.
yeah.
we will update the capital plan to reflect
Some-
that.
Some quotes I have received as high as 350,000 for the barn. But that was kind of, a lot of bells and whistles on it. On the low end, we're hoping to be more like 150,000.
and the 150 includes the engineering fees.
Hopefully, yes. Based on the couple of quotes I received for construction, the concrete, and the first engineering quote that I received, yes, we could do everything under 150.
Okay.
Do you want me to go print the capital for everyone?
Don Duncan and Jeff Wright are the 2 engineers. So
There's variables to get cleaned up before.
Haas was too busy and couldn't tackle it.
Okay, so we will move that project into 2026 as well with the new cost of 150. It was 100 before. Okay. And let's see if we had any other. Mark, no other capital you wanted to discuss today?
The ATV that's on there for the police department, I am hopeful to remove that off of capital and to pay that out of operating and donations. So I think that was slated for 2026. Between donations and police operational, we're hopeful to cover that without having to use capital. Therefore, reducing the burden to the capital fund.
Okay. Thanks.
Every little bit helps. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so yes, I will get the expenses finalized and get that sent out to everyone. And then you can follow up if you have questions or any updates that you notice. Okay. Our unfinished business, we kind of discussed much of this at the last meeting, Lakeshore Drive Sewer Project. Did you guys walk Lakeshore Drive yet or not yet?
We're going to schedule it in the next 2 weeks. More than likely next week, we'll be selecting a day to conduct that. We're waiting for some preliminary information from Haas Engineering that will outline some of the areas as focal points that we need to focus on, where the road is narrowing on Lakeshore Drive, where we may want to consider taking back the right of way. So they want to put those documents in our hands first so we can review them prior to doing the walkthrough. And we hope to have those documents by first of next week, sometime next week at the latest.
Thanks.
Paving, right? That's a paving project. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit.
Oh, which brings me to paving. So, Trista, you might be aware of the CCMG has changed. There are no longer 2 submittals per year. There's only 1 submittal. It's every July now. And you can no longer request for no more than $1 million. It used to be 1.5. So with those changes, Lakeshore Drive, I can definitely say will be a minimum of a 3-year, if not a 4-year project moving forward. One of the good points that came out of the change to the fund is that for smaller communities such as Long Beach, the 75-25 has now been changed to an 80 state and then 20% match. So we drop off on 5%. We only have to match up to 20% now. So, which is some savings to us. So on every $1 million, we'll have to match 200,000.
Well, at least we know, so we don't have options and that's how we have to do it.
Yeah. Right now, I think our goal is once we do the walkthrough, work with Haas through this winter, have a application ready for July of next year, with the hopes of either starting paving in September, October of next year, right before the mills close, or it would be paving spring of 2027. So.
Yeah, the only other thing I would caution is there'll be some significant engineering costs up front as opposed to a typical $1 million job where the engineering might only be 20,000 or something. If we have to engineer this whole 4-year project in the first year in order to release it for the CCMG application, we're going to probably spend more than a typical year's engineering for a project of that size, if you follow me. So we just better prepare and we'll know those numbers eventually when we talk to Haas.
That's a very, very good point. There's going to be a lot of engineering up front to get this project off the ground, and then it'll just be phased in over 3 to 4 years. So, but definitely it's going to be yeah. But we'll be spending engineering on construction management and all the typical things that we do, but definitely it'll be a minimum of a 3 to 4 year phased in project. And at the same time, while we're doing Lakeshore Drive, just for any of the public that may be listening to this meeting, if we encounter roadways in the community that need to be addressed, we can also put those into the CCMG project, but Lakeshore Drive will be the focal point. If there's another road that needs attention, obviously we'll just add it as we go during that 3 to 4 year period.
Thanks. The possible sewer project engineering fee expense, I have no update on that. I don't believe anybody does. So
All I know, they're just waiting for the judge to issue a ruling on there was a motion for summary judgment
Hmm.
we filed a response and then the plaintiffs filed a reply, but that's been, it's been a year or just over a year, but all we do is wait now. So it's to no benefit to anybody to do anything.
Okay, thank you. Capital asset review, that is on the list along with, so fourth quarter. Since we're already in the third quarter, we'll be busy with follow-up to the audit that needs to be completed, along with trying to get the capital asset file, which is Tristan and I will work on so that I can report on it in the AFR in the new year. So that was part of the audit. It's been, we've been ongoing working on it, but need to kind of get back to it and get it completed. It shouldn't take too long, but just need to make time for it. The water rate study we discussed at our last meeting
Last week.
when we had a meeting. And I think we have our timeline. I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's going to be this month, right? That we would,
Talked about having council conversation at the meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
In light of the fact that you won't have a rate from Michigan City's increase yet.
Right.
And if it makes sense to evaluate your rate in part without that, knowing that there may be another increase coming, or whether you want to wait. And we talk through the current expenses with the current revenues. So we'll have better information for that on the meeting agenda.
And then Greg and the water department and myself discussed, and with Trista, the way the bill is now with the debt on there as the capital monthly charge. And if we just completely got rid of that off the bill and just put it into the water line, but now we're leaning towards leaving some capital so that it's clear that that is truly saving for capital. So we're thinking maybe around $10 or so, depending on the study. But again, that will be presented to council at this meeting, the September council meeting. With, again, I think our last discussion was we don't know when Michigan City will give us their rate. So do we think we're leaning towards not waiting and waiting? And granted, we'll have to renotice and have to update the ordinance with rates again, but at least implementing some of the increase that we know we're going to do.
Because otherwise, I think I forget when you said it might not be until June or something, right? So then you don't know. So then you're just waiting and sitting on it without any increase.
Magnitude of our problem, in other words, how much we're in the hole.
We went over it.
Roughly,
The problem is, I was plugging in some numbers during the meeting that aren't actually finalized yet. The shortfall on an annual basis is not as large as Greg had thought it might be. The problem is my current worksheet is not totally updated. It was in the tens of thousands that the current revenue was not covering the current expenses. But I can't give you a number because I've made notes and I was making some adjustments here. Yeah. And part of the reason why the balance coming out of 24 into 25 was maybe a little scary looking was the large water project expense of the remaining expense was 672 during 2024. That had been cash that had been building over time in the balance. And when that project was planned and planned to be paid from water, it was determined at the beginning of that approval that the balance of the water fund could be used toward that. So that, of course, is not a recurrence and will not be moving forward into 26 or 27. So that's part of the adjustment that we were looking at to let you all know if the water fund was healthy or not. And for the most part, it is healthy, but I think the numbers will demonstrate to you all that a small increase is warranted, mainly due to inflationary costs. Some of which, of course, include salary wages to your employees that have happened over the years. And the rate has not been increased, I think, since 2015. And so those are legitimate costs that need to be accounted for. And that's really where the bulk of the shortfall is coming in, is to make sure that we're collecting now for all of the costs at their current and then the next couple years expected rate of increase. That includes health insurance that's attributed to the water fund for the water department employees as well.
Anecdotally, there was some discussion about revenues relative to how many lots we own, whether they get that one comparison. But the water, I don't know if we're having any issues with it.
No, we did discuss that because I think just from our office, we just need, I don't know how consistent we've been over time. And then when that vacant lot discussion and then ordinance and changes happened, if a lot is improved or not improved, the ordinance states that if you are hooked up to the system. But does that mean you have a meter? Does that mean you're actually using water? So currently, if a home is torn down, what we've decided after I discussed with Chris Wilby is that you would no longer pay the water charges. You would pay the stormwater, the leaf, and fire protection, which all vacant lots pay. But those water base charge that's monthly would fall off. Even though, yes, that would then fall off. But that's how the vacant lot was written. So if council wants to, address how much capital we need, that debt is gonna be falling off in under 2 years. So I think it's more, for me, it's capital as a whole. If you own property, do you contribute towards that capital cost? Or is it only if you're improved? So
Is it a vacant lot ordinance or it's a definition of vacant lot in each of those respective ordinances?
there's,
Garbage and leaf versus
it's,
stormwater.
it's when, I think, it's just one ordinance that states each of those charges and then who pays them. And,
But stormwater ordinance is a separate ordinance from garbage leaf.
right.
So do they each address the vacant lot, or is there a third ordinance
I-
that defines vacant lot relative to each of those?
It's just addressed in, I think it's in the water rate ordinance, not in, is it a vacant lot?
So we should check on that, and it's not necessarily the case that garbage leaf and stormwater and water all need to have the same definition of who pays when a lot is vacant. Because the town services that are provided and the land use result to the town services that are provided may be different for each of those. Obviously, a vacant lot isn't going to have a garbage toter that,
Right.
we're not going to let the raccoons have their own. But it doesn't mean that stormwater might not, of course, have some runoff. And so that's why I was asking how the ordinances are set up. Okay.
Can't imagine that many big lots.
Well, there's at least 75, but there could be as much as like 150. I need to ask Diane. I think it varies. And I think when that discussion happened, nobody thought about the debt, so that when people combined and those charges fell off, it just wasn't thought of at the time. So if we,
This real, I'd hate to, I don't know if anyone listens to these, but if it's not being, I'm sorry. Or you can put a chair there.
If you've got a piece of property as big as this table and the house is down there where Trista's computer is, the rest of this land does contribute to the stormwater issues. And I would make the argument that if you're going to have a capital plan for water improvements, say these lots are going to benefit from having water access at some point in time, they should contribute to the capital for the water. I don't know how it's written. I'm sorry. I apologize. But
it is written.
if we're going to change these water rates and we're looking at these things in general, those issues, I think,
Right.
you don't want them to complicate the issue when you have your council meeting and you're deciding what to do. I think they should be talked about and decided ahead of time, roughly speaking. I mean, the council will put their imprimatur on the decision, obviously, but I think those issues need to be considered. It's really not fair to the guy that has one little lot that the other guy rides free on all the rest of his big land because he didn't put a house on it. I don't think.
So it is a discussion for the future, and also what we use our capital on. So, and who contributes to it. Does it matter that a lot is buildable or not? You know, can water department and I have discussed, you know, do we do an audit of how many taps there are? I mean, when you get a tap or get hooked back on, you have to pay a fee. Trista and I spoke about maybe those, actually, I guess Chris and I spoke about, maybe those fees are just increased substantially so that you have a little catch up for the lot that for 20 years never contributed towards capital.
I wonder if, I mean, this may not even be a thought, but is this something that maybe building commission could help with? Like if you gave the ordinance, I'm just kind of thinking, I don't know if building commission could help with this. If
I think as it
you
stands-
asked them,
Yeah. No,
or
that's an
gave the
idea.
ordinance, I don't know. I don't know if they'd be helpful. I mean, we have a
I
meeting.
think as it stands with the ordinance, if a house is torn down, Diane and I are gonna just remove those charges. If we wanted to change that, then we need to look at the ordinance. Because I don't know how consistent we don't want to have someone who calls and says, hey, I don't want to pay these fees versus somebody that might be paying them and we just aren't catching it. So I don't know how consistent we've been in the past, ever since, I think it was 22 when those vacant lots were changed. So,
But if his house is torn down, they might have leaves. I mean, I don't know.
Which is why the definition is,
Right.
needs to be.
well, the leaf charge is on all the vacant lots. And so is stormwater and so is fire protection.
Okay.
These are two different, this is the water base charges and
Got it. Yeah.
so you're not paying for water usage
Water
because you're
and
not using
capital.
water.
Okay.
And then the capital charge, you know, is again, going to end in 2 years, but is not being charged on vacant lots.
Got it.
So is that, in the past, that charge has been for water infrastructure, for the pipes under the streets. If we're going to use it for any other types of capital, I think it just needs to be determined what we're using it for and how the town feels about an improved property versus a vacant lot.
Well, I'm a little confused by what you just stated. Any capital that's charged on the water bill is reserved strictly for water capital projects,
Okay.
whether it's honestly potentially piping or
Okay.
vehicular, they need the vehicles to go check, you know, the meters and what have you. So any water capital charge on the bill is never used toward,
Anything else? Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
paving or parks or something other than the specific and documentable, that's a word,
I just forgot that.
of a
that's
paving
all just-
project, if while we're, tearing up Lakeshore Drive, if there were some water piping there or stormwater improvements, of course, that we can document, then we can use that water capital and the stormwater capital, even though it's quote unquote a paving project, because there's other internal capital involved, we can do that.
That current capital charge is strictly for the old water improvements in place for the benefit of every lot in this town.
That's right.
So that's why I think the logic has to be consistent. If you are saying that we're gonna allow somebody with this big parcel to not pay the capital anymore, I would personally disagree with that, but the council needs to decide how to play those cards moving forward. This is not for today. It's not for this group, really. It's a council's. But I think while you're doing your weather rate adjustment, you should be thinking about this.
Right.
Because as Meg
And-
said, they're going along based on that ordinance that's in place. It may not be what you guys would like to see happen.
And the rate study will demonstrate both ways so that you have that information to make your decision.
Okay. So Tristan and I will get together more, and just finalize what we're exactly going to discuss at the council meeting about the water rate study. Okay, and then we will move on to the budget agenda item. So,
Okay. I'm gonna jump ahead of Meg for just a moment and then give it back to her, and we'll tag team a little bit today. A week and a half ago-ish, LaPorte County released the net assessed values for next year. This is in conjunction with the SCA 1, SB 1 increases in circuit breakers based on the change in the homestead deductions. That bill, and something we hadn't talked a lot about yet here, other than kind of brief mention, is the fact that there is also now, and there never has been before, a deduction similar to a homestead deduction, but it's just called a supplemental. I forget the name that they gave it, on 2% properties. In the past, if you owned a residential type home, whether it was an apartment complex, second home, because your main residence is homesteaded somewhere else, in or out of state, or a home that you rent out, there were no deductions applied to that property. SCA 1 now includes a deduction for them. This first year going into 26 is a 6% reduction of the net assessed value, of the gross assessed value, which makes it then a lower net assessed value. It's a 4-year growth in that levy, and I believe the numbers become 12, 18, and ultimately 25%. And I'm gonna double check that right now really quickly in my well-worn little reference guide I have here. Oh, I was close. 6, 12, 19, 25. And then in 2030, presently, it's 20. In 2030, it's 30%. And then in 2031, 33.4, capped at that amount. So the effect that has had on you all here for Long Beach is, because you have, I think, a pretty large quantity compared to most communities of second homes for people. All of those people are receiving for this next year the 6% deduction. Ultimately, what that does, it doesn't matter where they live. It's just the fact that the parcel is here. So it is not an Indiana versus Illinois issue of any kind. It's simply the fact that this parcel here in Long Beach is owned by someone. It is residential, but it is not their homestead. So it's in the 2% tax cap category. So normally they would have to get up to 2% of taxes, 2% of their assessed value before the caps would kick in, as opposed to 1% for you all that reside here. But now they're allowed the 6% deduction. So ultimately what that does is and you remember that assessed values occur in the 1 year and then you pay taxes on that value the next year. So right now, when you're paying your 2025 taxes, they were on the 24 values. So when I say 24, pay 25, that's what I'm referring to. The assessed value for 2024 is used to calculate the taxes that you pay in 25. That number, I'm going to round off a little bit, was 609,600,000. For 25, pay 26, the number that was just released recently, it's dropping down to 599,500 million, 599,500,000. Keep wanting to forget the million number. That's important. So it's a 1.65% drop, which in and of itself, 1.65 seems like kind of a small number. However, typically in the past, your AV has grown 3, 4, 5, 8%. Trail Creek's values grew just over 8.5%. Small community also, different set or different makeup kind of, right? But nonetheless, a fellow small community in the county. I compared the county as a whole. And let me get that pulled back up. I didn't open that pre-meeting. Just to give you kind of an idea of what's going on. And there were some other units that had drops, some others that had increases. LaPorte City had a large increase, but that is because they annexed the 39 North boundaries into the city. And so in taking over that, the duties of the district to provide water and sewer, that meant they also now are annexing the property tax. That was a $30 million swing for them. In total, the county's growth was 1.5%. But that includes some of these others. Some other larger areas of growth were Kingsford Heights, Union Township, part of Cool Spring, some other areas of loss. Johnson Township, I'm not familiar to know how that compares to you. So it's variable. There's not an exact reason. Potawatomi Park had a loss. Theirs was 5.38, so theirs was higher than yours, which is unfortunate for that little community. But point is, for Long Beach, Meg and I did have a call with the assessor who had looped in the auditor through part of the answer to our question and confirmed that it is this increase in the deduction for the most part that caused that reduction. So looking ahead, we know that for 27, it's going to increase by 12%, increase to 12% instead of 6%. And we'll have to keep our eye on it. And
So more loss of revenue.
yeah, property tax revenue. Now, in 27 is when the vote can occur on income tax, which for many communities will be a good replacement for the property tax loss that they've had. As I mentioned before, though, in the current iteration of the state legislation, communities under 3,500 in population aren't going to be allowed to vote on their own income taxes. Aren't. Apparently, you small communities aren't smart enough to handle your own finances, which maybe I shouldn't say that, but it kind of makes me mad on your behalf, quite frankly. The county will decide, so you all will have to have some good conversations with them. And then the county imposes that on your behalf. You receive a percentage of it, the county gets to keep a percentage of it, very large chunk, 75%.
Trista, is this,
I can figure,
is that in lieu of the lit public safety?
yes, that will be the replacement for that. And so what I can figure is the,
Hey, we're gonna get less on the increased valuation of all the homeowners from out of town. And then we're gonna have to not get any, we're supposed to supplement that with income tax, but most of our homeowners don't make a living. So we're not gonna have opportunity to tax income on the people who are getting the property tax.
well, yes, I think that's probably fair to say that what has not been, I don't think clearly defined yet is the definition of the income tax. Typically, it is, as you know, you're a resident here, so the income tax is supposed to come back to the county, which is what John's saying, that if they don't have their main residence here, then we don't get to tax their income. Hard to say whether that somehow will be affected in the state legislation. I don't know how they could tax Illinois income for us here, but there's got to be some relief. In total, there's got to be some relief.
Tax.
I understand.
Tax. Some of the homes here.
But there, what I am saying, I agree with that, but what I am saying is there will be some adjustments to this legislation downstate. We just don't know what they're going to be yet. We'll start to get some inkling as they get opened back up this fall. And it's going to be a couple of years before we're through all of this.
3%. That's 5 times what you're experiencing this year. You're talking about significant decrease in revenues with no opportunity to make it up.
Right. Which is why I think some changes will happen, that it's impossible to function that way.
Well, we'll be belly up.
So,
If they go to 33%.
Right.
I don't know how this town survive.
back to the income tax for a minute though. So the county will decide, they keep 75% of it and then distribute the rest to the smaller communities. The only reason I can see that it's justified that the county keep some of it is that in taxing the whole county, of course, there are some unincorporated areas that the county still has to serve with sheriff's department, that kind of thing. And so part of that is distributed, through the county for that. Those income taxes have to be voted on in 27 to then be imposed in 28. And then collected going forward.
Think seriously about getting a lobbyist involved, start making your case down there in a couple of years, because if these numbers stay the way they are, we're gonna be in a deep hole.
Well, I mean, we do have a lobbyist, so, just make sure that Chris is focused on what, oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's current.
You got specific instructions?
Well,
He was working on the CCMG language for the paving projects and had to make sure that we were in the exemption for the wheel tax and that. So he's worked on a few things.
And there's a lot to be said about the fact that Long Beach is very unique in this rental situation. Of course, with some of the other lake shore communities, right? And so sometimes there are reasons to carve out in legislation for those things, which is exactly what John's referring to. And so there may be some other communities that can get on board with that. I don't know what other areas in the state might have a higher vacation rental area.
Honestly,
Culver possibly.
Mark and I listened to for the county and it said Michigan City was it was 37% was R2. So rental or second home.
Yeah, that's not surprising though, a third.
I went to that NERC meeting last week and the rep from Beverly Shores was very concerned about this. This was a pretty big topic of conversation. And I can't remember if he's the town council president. Sorry. The rep from Beverly Shores was very, very, very worried about it. He was the one that brought it up like at the end of the meeting. So he might be a good one to reach out to, just to see, I don't know,
Hmm.
get them on board or see what they might ideas they have, because he's very worried about it as well. I mean, I think the most similar to us, Beverly Shores.
Culver, I think, will be hit hard.
Yeah.
Possibly some of the college towns, Little Trine University, though, I don't know what their on campus versus off campus housing is, but there are some other places that, while it may not be second homes, will still be affected a lot by this
Yeah, West
2%
Lafayette,
change.
Bloomington, Terre Haute. I mean, and, in session, those towns probably get up, I mean, Purdue gets up to 70,000.
Mhm.
Trista, the public safety lit as it stands today, when does that end for us as far as the changes?
So the end of 27, meaning they collected the tax during 27, so it's paid out in 28.
Okay.
But then you have to vote by the end of 27 to then have something in place for 28's process to continue to move forward.
So we'll continue to receive what we received today through that date. And then that's when we have to petition the county council. Because my understanding was no single income earner in the county can pay more than 2.9%.
That's
So-
right, based on how it's split apart.
Yeah.
Because despite me mentioning about the county deciding for you small communities, the county has its own value as well,
Right.
totally separate.
When is it going on?
28.
The end of 27 is when it is stopped being
Collected as is today.
collected, but it's paid the year after. They have to collect all the tax money first, and they pay it the following year.
See the money, but on has.
Right,
Mhm.
28, you'll receive it, but the statute that,
Unless they change something, hopefully
Yeah.
before then.
Yeah.
Which it was, my conversation with a few of the county council members were that there is hope that some of the conversations they've had with some of the state people, that they'll go back and look at this and maybe make some changes before that actually occurs. To John's point, I think maybe that is where we reach out to our council president, President Schmidt, and have maybe a meeting with the lobbyists to start that engagement, to have those conversations, because he's in the state house and can look out on our behalf. So,
I think you can take Ogden Dunes, Dunes Acres and
Yeah.
Beverly Shores and maybe Porter Beach or wherever we can find, see if we can follow them. I don't know if they know the train's coming down the track, they don't.
right. Yeah. Okay.
I'll talk to Joy and have her get in touch with you. I usually talk to her after.
Maybe we can
these
just do a Zoom meeting with Chris Gibson, and so.
He's not gonna go outside of whatever you told him as far as his marching orders are written, you know what I mean? He may, advise you a little bit cursorily, but as far as lobbying for you, you have any specific.
But I think to Trista's point, even like Trail Creek, Pop Park, some of these other smaller towns too, who currently don't have a lobbyist, maybe he can speak on behalf of a lot of them and maybe split the cost with him, or, maybe he engages the other communities.
Non-resident homes is significantly larger than something like Potawatomi Park
Mhm.
or Trail Creek.
Most definitely.
We're gonna get hammered
Yeah.
with no.
Why did Pop Parks go down so much?
And I say that looking at one piece, I don't know how many taxing units they have. Long Beach has 2. Your taxing units comprise Long Beach, Michigan Township, right? And then the portion that is secondarily served by Michigan Sanitary, which just affects how the taxes show up on your tax bill and how it's listed here. So that section grew for you, but it's so small comparatively. The part served by Michigan City Sanitary grew by 11.47% in AV, but its total value is only 32 million as compared to the bulk of your property, 574 million. That's the part that lost 2.4% in value, 13.8 million in assessed value. So putting those together brings us to the numbers that I reported. Potawatomi Park is only 13,700,000, at least for this particular taxing unit. And they lost 700,000 in value. But again, I don't know if they're not our clients, so I didn't dig into them any further. I don't know if they have more than one taxing district in their. I'm not quickly seeing one, but
This afternoon I'll call.
oh, here is a secondary one. Who is this for? Also Michigan City Sanitary. That one also lost value. So they lost value on both fronts.
Might be Friendship Gardens, that's a big chunk of it, as far as land mass, I don't know, if they got some special consideration.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll call I don't know if it's the assessor or the auditor's office, but when Tristan and I called last week, they can run a report that should be able to show us our percentage, which we've not known for,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
I'll make that call this afternoon.
Of which
Which-
are full-time and is it full-time and so, okay.
Yeah, 1 versus 2%.
I think everyone
Yeah,
likes to
Joy and I
say,
just talked about that and that's what she said. Oh, yeah, they run the reports and I think it's 50-50. So that'll be interesting to see what it is.
Which will give,
That's what, we just talked about it last week and but who knows what,
When you send your lobbyists on state to argue with these guys, it's gonna be important about it.
right,
If we can get it.
I think we can,
yeah.
from what she thought, so.
okay. So moving along, so despite all of that bad news, the good news is that within this legislation still, your max levy is allowed to grow by 4%, like it has the last several years, meaning the amount of property taxes that you're allowed to budget for and put through your process here can still increase by 4% compared to this year, which is $58,700. And so you're able to be quote unquote collecting that much more money. Now, it will be offset by the increase in circuit breaker, but nonetheless, at least you're able to ask for that as opposed to asking for 0 increase, which would put you even back further.
That was a big smile, Trista.
So your max levy, meaning the property taxes, as you recall, are attributable to general fund, MVH, and parks. And we're going to go through each of those in a few moments. The other thing I want to mention in relation to the AV before we move on is that the CCD fund, Cumulative Capital Development, if you remember from previous conversations, that's set by rate, not by levy. Every community is allowed one fund that they can dictate the rate of so that it's not under this assessed value fluctuation. This last year, you collected 304,806 in levy, budgeted for it, I should say. There's always a small part that's uncollectible, but because it is always set at the 5-cent rate per 100 of assessed value, with the increase in AV, you'll drop down to 299,771, meaning your CCD fund's going to lose $5,000 because of the drop in assessed value. The rate is going to be consistent, 5 cents, but because of the drop in assessed value, you lose $5,000 there. Overall to that fund, that's not a huge number, but we don't like losing money. That's not how it's supposed to go because your expenses to provide services to your residents, of course, always are increasing with inflation. So what I would like to do is go to the budget worksheet, which is your long one. And actually, before we do that, I'm sorry. Look for just a moment, please, at the portrait shape one. This is called the Form 4B. It's a name that DLGF uses in the whole budget preparation process. And the form you're looking at is created by them. It's one of the forms on Gateway. And what it does is helps calculate where you'll end up with your tax rates ultimately. The top half is, you see in gray, says July to December 2025. The DLGF processes and calculates the budget on an 18-month cycle, meaning we're now past June 30th. They want to see what the rest of this year looks like with projected revenues, projected expenses, to come up with that estimated December 31st, 2025 cash balance, which is right in the middle. It's a numerical number 9 of your line item, your line numbers. This top page happens to be Casino Riverboat, so it's small. But you see the 5,876 number. What that indicates is if the revenues come in as predicted, which are always conservative, and if you spent every penny of what you had budgeted, which never happens, but if you did, you would end the year with $5,800 in that individual fund. Then they use this year's plan that we're working on for next year's budget. So the next section is the revenues for budget year 26. You see $50,000 is listed there as casino boat money we expect to get. And expenses then we budgeted 41,740. So we would start with the 5,800. We would add $50,000 to it. The DLGF says we're going to expect you to spend every penny of the budget. So subtract 41,700, and that gets you to line number 18 toward the bottom of an operating balance of $14,000. If your number in line 18 is a positive number, they will approve your budget. It could be a penny and they'll approve the budget. They just want to know that it's funded. We, of course, want to make sure that that's a reasonable number, and that's why we're helping. That's part of our job. In this example, this fund demonstrates that your cash will grow a little bit. But again, we know it will grow even more than that because you're never going to spend every penny that you budget. But this is the form that the DLGF uses. And I brought it today because we weren't able to get the fund projection updated with the timing with the bank statement to have August completed. And so there are a couple funds that we're going to look at by using the sheet instead. And that's how we're going to read it. The very, very bottom, you see value of 509 million. We use 85% of the net assessed value in these calculations for the advertising purpose of the budget. So the tax rate is advertised a little bit higher than what it will be, because people appeal their assessed values. And so we would never want to predict based on the full 599 million. If in fact someone won an appeal and your assessed value goes down, now your tax rate is shifted and there's no room to compensate for that. So you'll see that number is used throughout, even though it's lower than the 599 that I indicated. Excuse me, goodness gracious.
Ask if you needed water, but.
Yeah, the property tax rate at the bottom then is 0 because again, your casino fund does not receive taxes. So we would expect that to be a 0 number. Okay, so that's how we're going to read as we go through a couple of the funds. If we can switch back then to the budget worksheet. Meg, do you want to go through some of the notes that are here and explain drops and raises, or, drops and
It's fine.
increases, or
We
do you
can
want to?
try and do it quickly? Yeah.
Okay,
So in the clerk general fund, the first page at the top, you'll see some of the wages due to our rate changes for the trash leaf garbage fund. We've kind of spread some salaries based on work that various people do. So that has caused this budget to decrease slightly.
and my little scribble note says REM, like remainder, to H2O water and garbage. So Meg's
Water as
remainder of her
well.
salary is 10% to each of those. And then for Diane, the remainder of her salary that you think might be missing is to garbage 5%.
That's actually Deanna, but yeah.
Oh, I said, excuse me, mispronounced. The other quick note also is that Laurel used to be in the 77,000 for this year, and Meg is reducing just to the single employee.
So next page, it starts the admin area of the general fund. The this is not fully completed because the health insurance, that's that first orange line, is going to be, as the note says, allotted to the various departments and or funds. So we budgeted enough in each fund, but still need to kind of spread that larger amount. You'll see how there's no actual expenses in June of 25 because those actual expenses went to, they followed the employees. So we're gonna, for the noticing purpose, we left this high right here. So I guess I'm trying to see how that contributed to our decrease, but that increased 12% overall from the information that we have. The next orange lines are the town insurance, also increased 10%. And again, are allocated by department based on what insurance tells us. So they will break it out for us. So all we have to go on is kind of our breakout from last year. Last year's budget did not break it out, but this year we're going to break it out. So to follow the way that I expense those costs.
Meg, can we go back up one to 127, the Hoosier Start? You have
Mhm.
$400. There's been some conversation that some employees who may not be contributing currently may start contributing in 2026. I may just recommend that maybe we do budget the 1,600 just in case those employees that aren't currently taking that benefit may do so in 2026.
So again, that one, we've got everybody covered. It just follows their
Oh, it's a
place
split.
in their department. Yep.
Okay.
But
great.
if you think we need to add for police, for example, we can do that.
No, as long as all five are covered, I think we're good then.
Yes.
I
So-
thought that was the town as a whole. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so that one's, the notes aren't by all of these, but you'll just see they follow the department or the employees.
Very good.
Okay.
The reason there's a $14,000 decrease in the overall budget, those two circled numbers in the adopted column, the 59.9 or 59.6 for Social Security and 77.8 for the perf. That just helped to the math because those are following each employee now too.
Right. And then,
Traditionally, we've kept them in the one line and now we're putting it along based on where they.
so we didn't, just time constraints and kind of just noticing the budget, which had to be done last week. So we're going to finish that up. The electric and gas we've got increasing by 15%. So it's all just really the perfect storm of timing of tax revenue plus increased expenses. So we're just going to have to take them as they come. And I think we're having good conversation and we'll continue trying to make the plans. Okay, and then 512 is the building department. It's pretty similar, went down 3784. And Tricia's got that arrow to the rent expense because they are no longer using the community center for records. BZA is next, went down a little bit because I just do that work and it's part of my job. We don't have a secretary anymore. And then
So two comments before you turn the page. The top right corner of page 1 has 4% listed. Right now, this whole entire worksheet has a 4% increase to all of the, including your part-timers, right?
correct.
Yeah. And so that's why the two at the top in the building are orange, just to indicate those raises. But I did want to point out that the building commissioner, I believe, is a $78,000 contract. And the spending to June this year was higher than trend would be. So I just wanted to point that out and let whoever follow along whatever is supposed to happen there.
Well, and again, I think that is somewhat seasonal, so hopefully will slow down in the winter months. But we will keep an eye on that.
Correct.
Okay, next page is the police department. And again, this is not completely accurate till we get that insurance in there. Um, but let's see what the big increases were. I guess we've gotten rid of the part-time salary, or I guess hourly wages.
Right, the 119, yeah, for 11,000.
Correct.
Mhm.
And then we've got the Social Security and Medicare. That's probably what's, those types of costs are increasing the budget in this area. And again, it's actually going to change once the rest of the insurance is in here. It is accounted for though in our total budget number in that admin area. So it's just simply removing it from there and putting it into this area. So it may increase slightly again, but it actually,
This is part of your effort to allocate payroll
mhm.
to payroll costs to departments where it belongs, right?
Right.
And actually, if you look at the actual column, we are putting those expenses here this year. So when you look at the actual against what our proposed budget is going to be, it should be a little bit more in line. But it is showing that increase from 25 because again, that budget was not in this area in 25. Anything else you wanted to point out, Trista?
Not on that
We
page.
did increase equipment based on discussions with Mark. So, okay. These two funds are showing a decrease, but actually, again, with that insurance, I don't think that decrease will be as large as it is.
To the fund specifically, yeah. right.
Correct. Correct. So again, the budget is sitting in that clerk in the general fund admin section, and it's just going to be placed into these two buckets of the fire insurance and then the public safety insurance. We did try to look at, because the building's so new, the gas, electric, water. So I think we have it budgeted well, and we'll just continue to assess since it's, again, just going to be the second winter this year. Any questions? That's the general fund.
The general fund, before you turn from her page there, you'll see the notes toward the left column, 21,603, that's a negative value. In total, your budget for next year, you've made enough cuts in some various places to come up to $21,000. The levy growth I mentioned earlier, attributable to the general fund, is the 32.9 that's listed there. And I wrote at current level because I want to come back and have a little bit more conversation about that in a few minutes. The circuit breaker increase then attributable just to the general fund only will be an additional $40,000 more than this year, putting you on prediction right now at 105. Meaning you're asking for the levy of 856, but 105 of that will not be available to you because of the various circuit breakers, 1-2% caps. So the levy collection will be closer to 770. You then have your other miscellaneous revenues that make up 1.5 million. So if you'll flip to the second page, which is actually the third printed page, but if you just turn over the cover of what we looked at to start with. Oh no, I did yours single pages. Go to page 3, please. And in the top left, you'll see fund name 0101 general. That's the page you want to be on. So it's the third page of your document there. And in the middle then for revenues, we see the 856 for levy, 105 taken out for, although they don't show it as a negative value, line number 12 is taken out for property tax impact. So 772 is your levy. Combined with the miscellaneous revenues that you'll receive to put you up to 1.5. So when we look at this page, if you spent every penny this year, you'd end this year with 1,129,207 at that halfway point on the piece of paper. Then we go through next year's budget. You see we're right now budgeting 1,574,000, which we just went through. revenue is not going to quite cover that, probably. Although with the miscellaneous revenues, we are conservative, but, will building permits be a little bit lower next year? Hard to say for sure. So that's why we're conservative for you. So you're still going to end the year next year in the general fund through this calculation at over $1 million, but you'll see that it's about 50,000 less than this year in cash balance if you spent every penny but the rest of both years. Don't love the drop, but that's not necessarily dangerous. You certainly can't go, though, 10 years losing 50,000 a year because eventually you're gonna be out of money. We prefer to see a little growth to the cash balance, especially because we only just recently started contributing to the rainy day fund. But this is at least a budget that will be approved. It's a budget that you could pass that you're comfortable with. I would love to see a little bit more cut past this 21,000, but keep in mind that there are some natural places that I think some cut will happen already, which is the health insurance. You should not come in at a 12% increase. Hopefully it's a little bit less than that. We just don't know exactly what it's going to be. And the property liability insurance, hopefully will come in a little bit under 10.
Plus, Trista, if we don't expend the operating budget for 2026 in certain funds, that helps us as well, correct?
For sure, as well as not spending every penny in 25.
Right.
So hopefully, all the department heads can understand the gravity of all of this. And Mark, you can have some goals set with them, for the rest of this year, coming in at underspending a budget of 5, 8, 10%, whatever it might be. And having that same goal for next year too, or a different goal, but point being of underspending, having an underspending goal.
Yeah.
For 26 will help preserve and keep some of that cash available for weathering the storm that's coming.
And I think we're on track for that already. The majority, we've had those conversations, and I think we're going to be in good shape as we close out this year.
So as we look back at the budget worksheet, the landscape oblong, when you flip the page, then it says page 1, because these are now the other miscellaneous funds. We're done with the general fund. Some of these we can skip by. The riverboat, we've got the budget there. It's gonna do all right with the revenues, and I don't think we need today to spend time on it. What I would like to do is move forward to the property tax receiving funds. There is additional time yet before you actually vote on the budget. For example, if you wanted to come back to the community center fund, we can do that later, but for today, I want to make sure that we get to the property tax funds. So for this section, if you'll continue turning, the MVH fund starts on page 2, but finishes on page 4. My handwritten notes that you see there are that right now, the MVH fund is budgeted at $27,650 more than the current year. A small part of that comes from the salaries, but it's not huge. The salary increase is, approximately $5,000 or something. There's a little bit of increase in health insurance due to employee status, basically. Workers' comp always goes up a little bit with your employee payroll. And so I just really, more of a caution. It's not necessarily problematic to have the budget higher than this year. The building line on page 4 alone takes $15,000 of this 27, so that's more than half. As long as we can keep in mind the focus on the underspending, the fact that you're budgeting higher in light of a growth of 18, but additional circuit breaker of 24, less revenue coming in. And so, again, we just need to be mindful. If we go back to the Form 4B form, which is for you, page 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm sorry, coming out of Gateway, they don't page number it. I didn't catch it till we were already in the copy machine, so it was too late. It'll say motor vehicle highway in the top left. So again, you end 2026 with a positive value of 386,693. They'll approve the budget. It's just a matter of whether, if every single penny were spent, do you as a council want to stomach a loss of $70,000 based on increased expense reduction due to circuit breaker? Again, I think trending coming in this year, they're underspending already, right? But I have to be mindful of that. The last part that receives property tax then is page 6 of your budget worksheet. Starting on page 5 is where the park fund starts. And it ends on page 6 up at the very top. My notes for it though are at the very bottom just due to spacing. So the budget on the park is listed right now at $5,368,000 less than the current year, which is great. Their portion of the levy growth is the 7,781, but circuit breaker attributable is a $10,000 loss. So on balance, they come in pretty close. Their 4B form 9 is page 10. Looking at line 18, if every penny spent, they would come in at a cash balance of 271,757 at the end of next year. $23,000 loss from the cash balance of this year. Again, keeping in mind all the little caveats, right? And this is what I wanted to circle back to. Having a cash balance that's more than an entire year's budget is pretty amazing. There are not many places that can do that, and I understand this is a single fund. But my reason for bringing it up is if, whether it's this year or maybe next year, the council decided that they wanted to reduce the amount of levy that the park received, because it's all proportional. Let's just say general fund gets 75% of the levy, MVH gets 15% and parks gets 10. You all decide, should general get 90, MVH 10 and 10? How should that balance be? That is a year-to-year decision that you can make. It's just that we traditionally have followed the same type of proportion every year for a long, long time. I understand politically that if you were to decide to cut levy to the park fund, that there would be conversation. So I'm not sitting here today telling you that you're at a cliff and you have to do it. I'm just simply telling you that when you're looking for ways to weather the storm, there are some other options other than strictly just only cutting that fund's budget from the general fund. You could reallocate some of this levy to the park if you chose to do that. Now, if their cash balance was $5,000, I would not suggest to you that that would make any sense, because then you'd be not leaving them with anything. And I'm not suggesting that you take a significant portion away. I'm just suggesting that that is one of the items on a list of things for what do we do in light of these circuit breakers. This is on the list, is simply all I'm saying. The list of things to consider. Then I think kind of joined with that I know there's been conversation about the tennis court and who should foot that capital expense if it still comes in at 250. Obviously, the cash balance that the park has is large. Right now, the actual cash that they have is 347,689,000. It's different than this 4B sheet because the 4B calculates if they use the rest of the budget. That's why that number doesn't match line 9. We don't expect them to use a whole 188 yet this year. They never use their whole budget, which is great. That's how they've been able to grow their cash. But when we're looking at a cash balance right now of 347, in light of the other budget issues, I hope that the council will consider that the park fund, if this tennis court is moving forward, the park fund itself has 350,000 estimate, 347 rounded up. A large part of that capital, really for the benefit of the town's financials, would need to come from the park.
And they're saying too that step 29 is going to be substantial other than just kind of a repair. I mean, they're talking about pilings and all kinds of things. Now, they don't know what it's going to cost. We don't know. They haven't told us. So how much is
Well,
it going to be?
And that's important
But-
information to get to the capital plan. That's the first I've personally heard of it.
You've never heard,
All the old ones do.
so you've never heard of step 29 for the,
Not in the capital, it's not in the capital plan.
so they haven't, okay, so I have to,
Yeah, I don't know if they're planning on taking it out of their 80,000 a year out of their improvements, out of Fund 430.
Might be,
Yeah, otherwise, if not, we'll need to add it to the capital. So,
so do
which
you,
really an item like that, though, should be on the capital plan anyway. And then we just simply can mark, like we do for the other funds, that 80 of their kind of regular operating budget is attributable toward it. So
so how do we get that? I mean, should,
we need to get a rough cost estimate of what they anticipate that may come in at and then forward it to Meg and Trista to plug into capital.
so do you want me to reach out to Paul or Zach or how? Yes. Okay.
Please.
All right, I'll do that and ask them to get you a rough estimate of the step 29
Yeah.
repairs.
And when they anticipate starting the work.
When, okay.
Yeah.
And again, please don't misunderstand me. I am not suggesting you gut their fund cash. I'm not
Oh,
suggesting
no,
you overall their levy. I just want you to see that, again, it's simply an item on the list of options that moving forward you have available.
no, I did. I mean, again, after the meetings, I talked to Joy and it came up last month, how
Yeah.
much is there,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Yeah.
And that's when she reached out and talked to Zach, and that's when he talked about
Okay.
the more extensive repairs at step
Okay,
29.
yeah.
I don't know that it's common now, so those levies are adjustable by the council.
I don't know that it is. I didn't know.
Some higher power.
The higher power sits right here at this table.
To change that, Trista, is that by ordinance then to change it?
I would be surprised if it ever was in an ordinance to start with. You change it simply by assigning it within the budget.
Okay.
What you're constrained by is the overall 4% growth and how you allot it within the 3 funds. You, if you wanted to, you could decide, we want, I don't know, we want the community center to receive levy. That part of the revenue we want them to get is property tax. You can add a fund in. And then it's still the same pot. So now your pot is divided, by 4 funds instead. You could decide that, it'd be crazy, but you could decide that your motor vehicle highway fund is now only going to be funded by gas tax, no more property tax coming in. And you could reassign that to the general fund if you wanted. That's all within your decision. Those 2 options, I'm not suggesting those would be crazy.
But just the general
But-
knowledge that it can be
Yeah,
divided and discussed.
Yeah.
You didn't know, I'm.
And
the past, there's really been no reason to change it, I don't think. The general fund is the workhorse. It needs to get the most of it. And for a town your size, the gas tax that you get is so small, you need some levy to help go toward your streets. A lot of small communities use levy toward your roads. Many places also, a small and large, give levy to the park department because otherwise there is no revenue stream for that service that you're giving to the residents. So in the past, there just hasn't been a reason really to look at changing any of it, but coming in the future, there might be.
Yeah, and I would,
The argument about takes care of the stops was something we talked about here today.
Mhm.
And the park department kind of shouldered some of that responsibility because they had some money. And I don't think they had any major goals at the time. So accidentally, we actually did supplement the general. The park department took that in. So it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision at that time. But in this discussion, we talked about that all, part of what you're talking.
Yeah.
If they continue to maintain that responsibility for the staff, which it sounds like they are at 29, then that would argue for not hitting them 200.
Right.
The other hand, taking the 70 balance.
Right. So it definitely is, a big picture view, and then of course the detail that comes from that as well. Both things have to be done. So that's why I wanted to give you these breakouts, the handwritten notes there today on the budgets. The rest of the funds are in good shape as far as, page 7, the CEDAT, the lit public safety, all of those as budgeted, as previously discussed, are in good shape. They all come out with good balances, positive values, for next year. Water department, is page 9, 10, 11. There is an increase there to their budget. But again, overall, it's going to come out fine, as far as approvals go. And again, just a quick reminder, legally, because water, stormwater, garbage are considered utilities, you don't have to put them in Gateway. But for transparency's sake, for the public to be able to have information about them, we did last year for the first time, put these last 3 funds into Gateway for people to be able to see it. And
Got a bond principal expense line. Page 11.
it's,
We've actually got it highlighted in yellow, 23. It's 312, 400. Oh, this we had 314 the prior year. Is that correct to call that principal expense, or is that?
no, and Meg and I have worked on this. We talked with Civic. It was part of what she mentioned earlier about moving the liability over with the balance sheet. It simply was a place to note that the overall water bond debt is this value. In total, though, it's in this bond principal expense line because that's what Civic had as a title. That does cover principal and interest both. And it just needed to be listed somewhere.
And you guys have got a handle on all that so that you understand exactly when that's done. And then have we talked, is the current council kind of aware of that issue?
We just discussed it when we were discussing the water rate study. So few members were present for that.
I think it's 27.
Mhm. And Trista explained with what we have left and when Diane and I are supposed to make the last payments, so. Mhm.
And then as you flip onto pages 12 and 13, you'll see that, as Meg started off mentioning, some of the clerk office expenses, the 5 or 10% are listed in water, garbage, and stormwater now, related to the oversight and the bookkeeping that they do for those respective funds. It helps ease a little bit off the general fund. It's good to use these diverse revenue streams for some of those expenses, and it's done in a proportional value that the state board will have no trouble with. We probably could put even a little bit more over there, but we also want to make sure that those revenues are covering the initial expenses of operations and things first, and then we look to see, we did include these expenses in the garbage leaf rate increase that was done. And it's not large. You see it's, a couple $1,000s only. But that diverseness helps the general fund tremendously. And all 3 balance wise are fine as far as the 4B goes, the 4B form.
Oof.
I'm just gonna make one general comment real quick. The fire truck that we're replacing this year, the fire department would like. The fire truck that we're replacing this year, the fire department, typically much the same as what Mark described to you about the water department truck that he's replacing. You normally would just have the town go out for bids for a sale of that vehicle. On the fire department, because of the maintenance issues and the way our truck that we're keeping is as old as it is, we're probably going to make room in the station for that truck to remain in service for us until we get the second new truck, assuming we're able to afford that with all the bad news we got today. But essentially, we'd like to hold on to that. It's not germane to your budgeting discussion. I just wanted that out so you all understand what we'll probably do with that vehicle when we do get the new one. You probably won't realize any sale value.
Makes good sense. I guess the last thing I want to mention really quickly on the Form 4B, if you can just flip back to the general fund, page 3. I mentioned already about us using the 85% net assessed value at the bottom in the calculation so that your rate is advertised higher than what you know it's going to be, because you cannot increase the rate when you vote. You could only leave it the same or decrease it. And so I just wanted to point out, right now, you see the general fund alone, the rate is listed at 16.8 cents, 0.168 on the dollar. If we were to have the 599 million filled in, the rate would be 0.1428. The rate this year on the 609 million of assessed value, the rate was 0.1350. So the rate itself will go up, but only because the net assessed value dropped, which you do not control. In saying that, though, as people's net assessed values drop, even though the rate went up by just a little bit, by half of a penny, 8/10 of a penny, the dollar amount that they pay just for the general fund may not change depending on how the math works. Because their assessed value is less. I just want you to see that even though the advertised rate is the 16.8, when we go to the full assessed value, the rate is less. But it's not because you all sat here and decided to raise taxes. You're not raising taxes. The implications of the net assessed value and the homestead deductions and the supplemental deductions are what caused the math to end up where it is.
Kind of sad.
So I can do a little graphic if you think that it's helpful for public consumption and PR to do a little graphic demonstrating that this last little bit about NAV and tax rate, little teeter-totter type of thing. If you don't think many people will be,
I think council needs to for sure understand
yeah,
as they approve the first
We
read,
love
but,
pies.
but,
Graphics are good.
yeah.
oh, you think they are at the
I
council
do.
meeting?
I like graphics.
Okay, well,
Well,
Tristan and
I'll
I
have a
can
little
talk
thing
about.
put together.
yeah. Okay,
So,
do we want to discuss the salaries before we go?
oh, I meant to put together.
That's the council's.
So, right,
The
right.
impacts can be thought about.
Mhm.
Right now, you're at 40, so.
4%.
Council's not outlined big for right now.
No, I don't think that's
The discussion.
correct, but I also think.
Didn't HR recommend 4%, Mark? Yeah, recommended 4%.
They did, but they don't know all this,
They don't know all this is right.
right? So I just want to be careful about that. Like, I appreciate their work and their
Yes,
comments and stuff. It's just important to know that they don't base that recommendation off of this
correct.
whole information. I meant to do this before we started, and if,
I think HR's thought process was simply with what is looming, knowing that the growth is at 4%. But again, to what Trista just stated, this whole portion was not discussed at length.
And what's the general overall? Isn't there's an overall like state or overall increase for state or something, or the other towns or something? I know
Cost
there
of
was
living.
discussion about,
No, I mean, it varies. COLA,
Right.
each community gives
right, COLA,
varied,
that's what I was thinking.
percentages, so, yeah.
I will, and I thought I had it set here and it's not happening for me at the moment. Later today, I'll send back a quick email telling you what the value difference is from a 3 to a 4% raise. I had this set up so that one little click of the button would work for us and it's not going.
You guys use like, each area use one of those spreadsheets like passing.
We did a spreadsheet that I had Kayla do that we can share with the council, but it doesn't have the impact of like perf, social security. Those numbers aren't figured in. It's just the hourly rate figures. So
Yeah,
I-
which,
So the impact of the budget then would be.
Trista's numbers would be more accurate with all of
Okay,
it.
say here's the average, I just put this in, this AI, the average total salary for 2025 is projected to be around 3 million. In the US.
Average.
mhm.
As the council undertakes these proposals, because obviously, Mark's advocating for his people, as the all the other departments.
Oh, here we go. That worked better. Okay, general fund difference. Boy, that doesn't seem right.
Mhm.
No, I don't want to quote this because I don't trust that number. Something's not, it came up with me as 1,400 and there's no way that that's right.
That's really the same number in terms of budget.
So let me do that better.
But I don't know, do we have our projected insurance costs?
They gave us a range of no more than 10%. They do not foresee it increasing. But then last year they told us the same thing and it was actually like a 1.9 decrease this year. So we're hoping,
But we did switch
Okay,
last
so-
year. Yeah.
but we're hoping that the number isn't as great as 10%. So we usually don't learn until late October, November. So, yeah, renewals. Yeah.
So we're just trying, I mean, we're trying to do the first reading of the budget.
We have to.
We
yeah.
have to do it. Actually, I shouldn't say we're trying. We have to do it September 8th. So
Mhm.
we have to make that decision.
But
Based on
again,
what we have.
first reading can be the higher percentages, 12, 10, 15 for NIPSCO. And then by the time you come to vote, hopefully at least one of the insurance quotes will have more solid.
Okay.
The other one, you're probably just gonna pass with it being high, knowing that the renewal doesn't come till December.
Yeah.
The health insurance doesn't come till December and one other thing Meg and I did is look to budget better when the renewal happens. For example, the property liability is the one that's paid ahead, right? So property liability, the new cost becomes effective in December. Meaning And in the past, it was not budgeted with an increase happening at that time. It was just kind of put as an annual number. But we need to more proactively recognize the fact that that increase will happen in December. So when we're planning the 26 budget, we actually have no idea what the December of 26 renewal is going to be for 2027's remainder of the price. So on that quarter payment, we're going to predict a little extra high on that single quarter. And then the rest of these are at the value that you see for the first part of 26.
Got it.
So
Um,
without doing this, we're essentially short a percentage, couple of percents on the one quarter each year. So
Right.
we would be potentially coming in over budget due to that cost increase if we're not capturing it.
I know we did it one point, but we started out with general.
We increased them to bring down. Mhm.
I don't know if they have any price wars, but can't do whether it's serious or anything else can affect anything.
Not that I know of. I mean, they're gonna search again like they normally do every fall, the market to see what's our best, vendor for insurance. So hopefully we won't see too large of an increase.
I mean, I think that Mark has been really proactive and, I mean, talking to department heads. I mean, well, I'm the liaison for the community center, but I think
Mhm.
clearly streets and people know that really cut back on their, community, center has been held at 4/5 of their, budget. I think other people kind of know the same thing too, that just be really careful that we don't know what's coming and it's getting worse rather than any better. So,
Just like 2 weeks ago, the booster station took a lightning strike and rather than filing an insurance claim, our deductible's $10,000. It's probably going to come in 8 or 9. We're just going to have to pay for it, out of operating funds. So we're trying not to make claims to cause our insurance to go up. So
but things happen here and that's why, I do kind of talk about not being careful with our money and not, we're a town that has money, but the money can go fast, like, the roof, a booster station all of a sudden. So you kind of have to sit back and say, what really do we need? Without picking and choosing, but are there things where we don't need to spend 50,000 on something to make something in our town look better when we might have to make something just has to be better? So I think that's what maybe people have to start listening to rather than wanting what we really just what we need, or to sit back for a year and see where it all, or 6 months, right?
Mhm. Defer some expenses. And that's part of the reason for the capital plan too, is to have those in front of you and be able to say, okay, globally, here's all the decisions that we need to make, and these are things we need. One, can we afford it? And two, should we afford it? Right? Or should something be deferred for 6 months or a year? And so that's at least, having the capital plan at least gives you that information to help make your best decision.
Need versus want.
Any other discussion? We'll wrap it up just about 1 o'clock. So, is there a motion to adjourn? I'll make that motion. Any second?
I'll second.
And then all in favor
I
at 12:57 PM. Thanks.